Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. Gayle Goddard here. We get a lot of very thoughtful feedback from our YouTube audience, and we wanted to try to answer those questions on the channel whenever we think the answers will be helpful to other viewers. So I'm going to read you the email that I got from Marianne from the UK, and she wrote us to say, "My challenge is this. I always loved crafts and prepared lots for when I retire. But 18 months before my retirement date, I contracted an illness which, although not life-threatening, resulted in neurological, vision, and mobility issues. I can no longer do the fiddly stuff like cards, beading, or fine embroidery. Every time I try to declutter these materials, I feel overwhelmed by sadness and I have to just leave it. It's been 4 years now. Do you have any ideas how I can go forward in this predicament? I'm reluctant to give the stuff away in case I get better one day and can do what I plan to do. But I don't want to leave it for my sons to deal with either because I suspect it would just end up in the dump. I can still crochet and knit, but a lot of my day is taken up with physical therapy and ordinary household chores that take me ages to do. Any help with ideas would be appreciated." So this is what we wanted to address today. So thanks, Marianne, for writing, and I did send her a message, but I wanted to talk about that message here today as well. I'm really sorry that you're not able to do all the crafting that you wanted to do. I can totally understand why that would be disappointing. And on the other hand, I know that it's going to be an issue. You don't want to leave it with the kids because they're probably going to do exactly what you think. They're going to just get rid of it. They're going to offload it and it's going to be trash. So what's the compromise for you here? The first question that came up on my mind as I was thinking about this to myself was, what would your long-term prognosis be? If you think that there's a possibility that your health will vastly improve over time because of all of the physical therapy and stuff that you're doing, then there's a possibility that you might be able to return to some of those crafts, even if you can't return to all of them. If the prognosis is not that great and you think that you really won't be able to return to those things, we have to modify to accommodate for that. But as I was thinking about it, the first thing that I thought was, we can create a box. Why don't you create a box of crafts that I'm going to go back to later? And you can put into that box the stuff that is impossible for you to do now. And then it can be boxed up and put away so that it's not there making you cry or making you feel bad and reminding you that you can't do it right now. I wouldn't take your entire collection of crafts that you can't do right now. The cards and beading and fine embroidery, that's probably a lot of material that you would be working with. So if you have a big collection of it, you probably don't want to save all of it. So I would filter it for the really expensive stuff or the things that are difficult to replace easily. So save the concentrated version of those crafts instead of the entire collection that you saved for yourself for retirement. Thin it down to the really concentrated, juicy center of it. Keep the expensive stuff, keep the hard to find stuff. Give yourself enough to get started with. If you are able to go back to the craft, you want to have a little subset of things that you can get started with. And then take the excess of that craft and give it away to some of your friends that can use it right now. And then just give them that gift with the proviso that they know that if you're able to go back to that beading or to that fine embroidery later in the future, that they will hopefully gift you some materials back at that time so that you can expect to get a little bit of inventory back as a gift sometime in the future when you are able to use it. So they're going to use the materials that you bought and they're going to use them now. And then if you are able to go back to it, they can give you some fresh supplies, and that'll sort of be the trade, that if there's a need for it, they'll give you some stuff back. I say that because boxing up everything that you've saved for retirement will take up a whole lot of space. I'm guessing, based on the way that you described it, I'm guessing it's a lot. And so you don't want to try to shove all those in the corner and wait for them to maybe come back into use. You just want to take the representative sample of that craft and put that away in case you want to restart yourself. So think of it as the starter kit if you are able to go back to it. That way you cannot give up the craft completely, but you can also take it out of your daily life so it's not sitting there mocking you. You can't do the beads, you can't do the beads, you can't do the beads. Let's take those and box them up and label them. These are the crafts I might go back to someday, and go put them in the closet out of your way. And then you move on to, you make the space in your craft room for the knitting and the crochet and the things that you can actually do right now, and gift your friends some of your supplies when they'll be super happy to use them. And I'm sure that they'll be happy to reciprocate on the back end. If you peel out your starter kit and you find that you can actually do them, they'll give you some stuff back. I did have a crafty friend in Houston who she was a beader and a paper crafter. She did all kinds of paper crafting, and she had a stroke and she lost the ability to talk, and she lost her fine motor skills. So she found that the beads were just way too difficult for her in the tip of her finger. She couldn't make that functionality happen in her hands anymore, and so she had to give away the beads completely. But she was able to go back to the paper crafts, and she's able to do that really easily. Stamping, cutting things on with all the punches and stuff that you use. She was totally able to do that part, and so she just went back to a craft that she hadn't done as much recently, and it made it a little bit easier. Now, she did end up selling all her bead stuff away because she really was not going to be able to go back to it. But my point of telling that story is that she was able to do the craft that she was physically able to do and still exercise her creativity, get the enjoyment of being a creative person and having that be an active part of her life, and not be missing the beading as much, I guess is what I want to say. She was really happy going back to doing the paper stuff. And it meant that she benefited a whole bunch of her friends with a really large collection of bead stuff. It went off into the universe, and a bunch of our friends, we sent it out, sold it away at retreats and things, and she got a chunk of money out of it, and she was able to send it on so that somebody was using it currently instead of it languishing in her house. And it was a good way for her to keep her fingers in the creative pie. Really, and the point of telling that story is that crafty people can adapt, right? We're nothing if we're not very creative and full of ideas. So if you can't be full of ideas in this type of craft because you can't actually do it, you can certainly be full of ideas in the crafts that you're physically able to do. And so I would concentrate on what you can accomplish, and maybe the knitting and the crocheting will be some physical therapy that will help you get some of those skills back, so you'll be able to go back to the beading. Maybe you'll be able to adapt the materials and work with really big beads instead of working with little beads, or who knows, there may be ways to adapt. And so when you can't create in one way, you just need to try to exercise your creative muse in another way. Flex those creative muscles and make sure that you get the enjoyment out of being creative without giving it all up and being depressed about it. I know it's really hard, and I know that you're struggling, and I just want to say, I know that that creativity in you is still there and can still be had. And so focus on the ones that you can do, make a representative sample of the ones that you can't do and put them away, and benefit your friends now with your largesse of excess supplies. And hopefully all of those things will work some magic to help you get some improvement in your condition. And otherwise, in the meantime, you can be having fun being creative. I hope that this is helpful, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.